there are a lot of dimensions you want to look at it when you talk about corruption in South Sudan. Certainly there are monies that have missed, I mean, in the region of $4 billion. But we also have to understand that the monies we are talking about here date back from even before the CPA was signed. So certainly, as a new government, it has challenges in terms of systems in place, in terms of tracking monies, both that are generated within, but also that are coming from donor partners. It's a problem that the country has to address as it moves forward, and certainly an issue that donors and other and development partners to the country have put emphasis in terms of creating transparency, infrastructure, and methods of tracking monies that come into the country. Certainly the country has problems in terms of tracking monies, and these are not going to be dealt with in a period of 1 year after independence. We also have to appreciate the fact that the country was only formed a year back. The region has virtually had no functional government apparatus, even when it was still part of Sudan. So these are part of the problems that were anticipated from the very start.
Now, Morris, other huge issues, obviously, with Sudan. I mean, South Sudan and Sudan, the issues that continue there, the issues with the borders, and particularly when it comes from a revenue standpoint, issues with oil revenues and what's been happening on that front. It seems like such a complex issue just in terms of how this is going to come together for South Sudan, because it seems almost as though there is still a dependence on Sudan for it to be able to generate these oil revenues.
I think we all the other thing with oil revenues and the linkage between South Sudan and Sudan, and how that again relates with a host of other things, including how government functions, how government revenues come in, and how they are managed. I think from the very start, in terms of saying the CPA and other frameworks that were put in place before the country was born, it was that a number of issues were not dealt with, and that includes revenue distribution between Sudan and South Sudan. You must appreciate the fact that before secession, oil was a key component of state functioning and part of a key revenue source for Sudan. With secession, Sudan lost in the region of 70% of oil revenue, which went to South Sudan. But when that happened, South Sudan did not also grab the opportunity, in the sense that both countries were still linked in terms of the oil production happened in the south, and the export facilities were in the north. But the relations between the two countries were not ironed out, and certainly it was one of those, if you wish to call it, a divorce without clear guidelines laid out, and that's why up to now, right now, we have the oil production shut down.
What I want to ask you is, one of the things that Salva Kiir has said, he's spoken about South Sudan being liberated from its dependence on foreign power. What do you read into that statement? Just liberated from its dependence on foreign power, that still needs to happen?
Yes, Salva Kiir is right to say they are liberated, but I mean liberated in which sense? I think it's the whole point of liberation Salva Kiir talks about is a liberation from Sudan, and that's hinged on the philosophy that sees the problem of Sudan and South Sudan entirely within the lens of a North-South question. Yet the problem of South Sudan and South Sudan go beyond a North-South question, which merely looks at the religious and cultural differences between the two countries. In terms of liberation, and if we were to talk about liberation in the sense of South Sudan, I think what we can qualify as liberation is the creation of a new state. But the creation of a new state does not disentangle South Sudan from Sudan. You can talk of a host of things, including the way the economies of the two countries are linked, the citizenship issues. Just independence, having independence in the South did not dwell with the whole host of citizens of the South who are still in the North.
Morris,
all citizens of Sudan who are in South Sudan.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us, Morris. Thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, a lot of work still needs to be done in South Sudan, and particularly those two countries still moving forward. Morris Nsamba is Research Fellow, African Research and Resource Forum. Thank you so much for joining us.